My apartment's maintenance portal keeps marking my requests. Resident unavailable for entry. I have not left my apartment in 6 days. Okay, I know how this is going to read. I've typed this out like 4 different ways already, deleted 3 of them, and I keep landing back here. So I guess this is the version you're getting. I'm not looking for sympathy, and I am begging you, do not comment. Have you tried calling them again? Because, yes, I have tried calling them again. I have called so many times that the hold music has started showing up in my dreams, some cursed fax machine remix of what might have once been Vivaldi. I'm posting because I think there's a piece of this I'm not seeing, and I'm hoping someone in the sub is the kind of person who notices things. Because clearly I am not. So here's the whole thing. Start to now. It started with a fly. One fly on the rim of a glass I'd just filled at my own kitchen sink. Water still cold enough to wring the glass. It was just sitting there on the rim, rubbing its little front legs together, perched in the exact spot where my mouth was about to go. I remember it with a total clarity, even better than I remember what I had for dinner 2 nights ago. I dumped the water, washed the glass, got a different one, because once a glass has had a house guest like that, how can you trust it? By the time the new glass was full, there were 2 flies working the faucet, and here's the part that should have tipped me off if I had even one functioning brain cell that day. They weren't doing the normal panicky fly thing, the zip up and vanish the second a hand gets close thing. They were casual. One of them kept ducking under the lip of the tap and coming back out over and over with the focus of someone checking a peephole before they let you in. I absolutely did not want to drink the water. I filed a maintenance request that afternoon because that's what you do. That's the whole social contract. You pay your rent, and in exchange, somebody shows up when there's a problem. Category, pest control. Issue, flies in kitchen. Description: there are flies in my unit. I cannot find the source. I got a maintenance number, but nobody came that day. I'd stopped wanting to eat almost right away, and I chalked that right up to the flies. I'd ordered a full veggie pizza the night before, extra olives, even though I hate olives. But taking them off cost $1 more than leaving them on, which, don't get me started, is a crime against the consumer. And the flies had gone ahead and claimed the box like it was theirs by eminent domain. Who wants to sit down to a meal with an audience like that? Everything started smelling wrong. And I don't mean rotten exactly, I mean pungent. The rice in my rice cooker smelled sour, clear across the kitchen. The coffee smelled burnt before the water even touched the grounds. And if you've ever made coffee, you know that's not how it's supposed to work. I opened the fridge and got hit with this thick, sweet smell like flowers, a week past their vase water. And I cleared the whole thing out in one disgusted sweep. Didn't even sort it, just bag, trash. By the second morning, there were more flies, and this time they weren't being subtle about anything. Rows of them along the counter, lined up neat as a church pew. A little cluster on the microwave handle, holding what looked like a meeting. I found 3 in a mug I had personally washed, dried, and put away clean. And one of them walked clear across my phone screen while I was checking the apartment portal, taking its sweet time. And I watched it a half second too long before I flicked it off, because something about the way it moved made me not want to touch it. The status on my request had changed. Status pending access, technician unable to confirm entry. I was home. I had been home the entire time. Nobody knocked. I would have heard a knock. The walls in this building are basically wet cardboard with a paint job. I hear my neighbor's TV through them. I hear her chair scrape when she gets up to pee. There's no version of a knock on my door that gets past me. None. I left a note in the portal. I am available for entry. Please knock loudly. Then I sat down on the couch to wait and must have drifted off, because the next thing I knew, the light in the room had gone gray, and there was a fly walking up the inside of my wrist, right along the blue vein there, stopping every couple steps to clean its front legs. I brushed it off. It came back. Same spot. Wednesday was the day the smell stopped being a kitchen problem and became a whole apartment problem. I searched the entire place. Behind the couch, every cabinet, the one under the sink, the gap behind the toilet, that shelf in my closet where I keep a tote bag full of other tote bags. I found dust. One earring I'd made peace with losing months ago, a single piece of pasta, fossilized, origin unknown, possibly older than my lease. I didn't find anything dead. I looked hard, and there was no body, no mouse behind the stove, and no bird that snuck in through a vent. The smell had no address, no source, just a presence, and it was getting bigger by the hour. The flies followed me, not all of them. There were always more staying put than coming with me, but I felt like I was being escorted. I filed a second request. Marked it urgent because it was. Category urgent maintenance issue, possible dead animal in unit description. Strong odor, increasing fly activity. Please send someone today. The portal threw an error back at me. Duplicate request detected. I called the emergency line. 6 rings, then voicemail, smooth and unbothered as a customer service rep, clocking out at 4:59. I called the leasing office and got the recording. Your call is important to us and will be answered in the order it was received. I called 4 more times that day. That evening I knocked on my neighbor's door. I heard her in there. She was dragging something heavy. And then nothing. Dead stop. I knocked again, and I swear she was trying extra hard to be silent. When I got back to my own door, there was a fresh line in the portal. Resident unavailable for entry. Technician unable to complete service. I read that maybe 10 times, trying to find a version where it made sense. Wrong unit. A confused tech. An open door, 3 apartments down. One soft knock mistaken by some guy with a clipboard who clearly hated his job for a final answer. I left another note. I am inside the unit. I have not left. Please come back. That night, something landed on my face while I was half asleep on the couch. A leg tap at my upper lip. A second little press at the corner of my eye. A feathery drag along my throat. And I came up swinging at nothing. In the bathroom mirror, my own face looked like it belonged to someone who'd had the actual worst week of her life. A bruise along my cheekbone I had zero memory of getting. And when I pressed it out of morbid curiosity the way you poke a bruise, even though you know better, it didn't hurt the way it should have. It didn't hurt at all, honestly. It really must have been the lighting in the bathroom. The lighting's been bad since the day I moved in. Bad light explains a lot. It did not explain what happened next. Something moved behind my right nostril. I stood there at the sink and waited for it to stop being a thing that was happening. The way you wait out a cramp during the middle of the night, white-knuckled and praying to nobody in particular. And instead it kept on happening. And then a fly came out. It was the color of nothing, and dragged itself along my upper lip before I flicked it down into the sink, where it sat there, trembling. Wings still folded flat and see-through. I filed another request. It took 3 tries because of my shaking hands. Category emergency and issue, health hazard, description, please send someone. I think something is wrong inside my apartment. The portal sat there loading for almost a full minute, and then, "This request has been closed. Resident unavailable for entry." I wrote right back, "I am available. I am here. This request has been closed. Resident unavailable for entry. I am in the apartment. This request has been closed. Resident unavailable for entry. I live here." Nothing. I thought I'd actually broken the portal. Then the page refreshed on its own. No input from me at all, and a new line came up that I've now read so many times I could say it in my sleep. Occupancy status, pending verification. I checked my text messages that night. First time in what I'd have sworn was like a day and a half tops. 19 unread notifications. My mom, 4 times. The last one, nothing but my own name, and 3 question marks, which is somehow worse than actual words. My landlord once, short, "Please call me back, we need to confirm something." A coworker asking if I was okay because I'd apparently no-showed 2 full days. I tried calling my mom back. It rang and never once dropped to voicemail, which I didn't even know was possible. And then the call just ended on its own. I typed out a reply to all of them. "I'm fine, sorry, phone's been acting weird." I remember my own thumbs moving, the little tap of the keys. When I went back to check if it sent, every thread under every name was just empty. Not unsent. Empty, like the conversation had never once been opened from my end. The flies had started up a kind of residency on the wall above my couch by then, gathered into a loose, shifting smear that never quite committed to a shape. I'll admit it, some small, hopeful part of me kept waiting for them to spell something out. Maybe red rum. At least then I'd have instructions. They never did. They just sat there being a stain with wings, and that was worse than if they left me a note. Tonight there were voices in the hallway below mine. Heavy footsteps. A radio cutting in and out. Static, then a voice, then static. Somebody said a unit number, and it took me a half-second longer than it should have to realize the number was mine. I stood up too fast and had to grab the wall. The room tipped, then righted itself slow, like water finding its level. The smell was everywhere now, sweet and thick. I'd stopped really smelling it days back. I only knew it was bad by the way the air seemed to bend in front of it. The way blacktop shimmers in August. The voices stopped, right outside my door. A man knocked and said, "Police department, maintenance is with us, we're coming in." I tried to answer him. I really did. I opened my mouth to say, "I'm here, I've been here the whole time, I have the request numbers, I have every note I left, I did everything a person is supposed to do," and what came out was not that. Wasn't anywhere close. A dry click in my throat, that's all, and then every fly in the apartment lifted off the wall and the sink and the couch cushions at once. The bedroom door was shut. I don't remember shutting it. I don't really go in there anymore, to be honest. I've been on the couch, so don't ask me since when. I genuinely couldn't tell you. The flies were coming out from underneath the bedroom door in a thick, steady stream. They kept forcing themselves through the gap. The front door opened behind me. Somebody made a sound like they'd been hit in the stomach. The bedroom door swung open on its own, or somebody opened it. I honestly cannot tell you which. And there was a shape on the floor by the bed that I have been staring at for what feels like a really long time now. One of the officers said, "How long has she been here?" And I genuinely cannot understand why he's asking that about whatever's on the floor instead of just asking me, since I am standing right here, since I've been right here the entire 6 days. I opened my mouth again to finally lay the whole thing out. The requests, the dates, every note, every duplicate request error, the whole sorry record of it. But flies kept pouring out. I don't know why nobody will look at me when I talk. Why is nobody talking to me? My girlfriend was diagnosed with early onset dementia. I didn't think it could get this bad. It started off small. My girlfriend Steph would forget little details, things we'd brought up in conversation before. She'd repeat her thoughts or ask me the same questions over and over again. When she started to forget what she was doing or why she was doing something, I convinced her to go to the doctor. She was embarrassed and, didn't want to admit it, but even she knew something was wrong. The doctor said it was early onset dementia. I think Steph was scared that I was going to leave her after she got diagnosed. We were still young and she knew that I still had a whole life ahead of me. She never said it out loud, but I could see it in her behavior. She might not have remembered her diagnosis, but she could tell that she was losing herself, that something wasn't quite right. She'd spend nights sobbing in my arms about how she felt different, empty. I'll never forget the way she described it. It's like someone else is living my life, and I have no clue what they do. That's when she began to push people away. Friends, family, pretty much anybody but me. Instead of working, reading, or painting like she used to, she'd remain curled up in bed, glued to her phone. For a while it was fine. She was going through a hard time and I loved her. I wanted Steph to know that I wasn't going anywhere. After all, she was my girlfriend. When the doctor said there would be personality changes, it was fine. I thought that no matter how she changed, she would still be the Steph I fell in love with. That I would be able to see her true self even as things got worse. The real problems started a few months ago, shortly after I got home from work. I just started preparing dinner when I got a text from Steph. "Come upstairs." I turned off the stove, realizing that I hadn't checked up on her as soon as I arrived home. It had been a long day at work and my mind was preoccupied. Drying my hands, I headed up to our bedroom where I could usually find her. "Hey babe, what's up?" I asked, but Steph wasn't there. I searched around the room. I checked under the bed, in the closest, in the bathroom. But she was nowhere to be seen. "Where are you?" I texted back. It showed that she read the message, but she didn't respond. I checked her location on my phone, slightly concerned that she might have left the house. Once she'd been diagnosed, I made sure that I'd be able to see where she was at all times. Steph resisted initially, but deep down I think she knew it was for her own well-being. I spent the next few minutes searching around upstairs for her, but when I could no longer find her, I returned to the kitchen. Wherever she was, she would come out eventually. I froze. The stovetop was on again. I distinctly remembered turning it off. "Steph," I called out. She must have been here. Who else would have turned the stove on? But I heard nothing in response. I pulled my phone out again, zooming in closer on her location. Our icons were nearly overlapping. She couldn't have been more than a few feet away. I called out her name again, but still I heard nothing. Dai. That's when I began frantically searching for her. Maybe she left the house and forgot her phone? That would be even worse. She'd have no way of calling for help. If I could just find her phone, then maybe I could track her down from there. I decided to call her just to see where it was. That's when I heard the familiar tune coming from inside one of our cabinets, the one right next to our sink. What is she doing leaving it there? I froze. When I swung the cabinet door open, I was expecting to see the phone there. I thought maybe it'd be sitting on the bottom, with all the old sponges and cleaning supplies. I was not expecting to see Steph crammed inside the cabinet, all her limbs at odd angles. Her body was knotted and twisted in ways I'd never seen before. "Hi, James," Steph breathed out. It almost sounded like she was excited I found her, like it was some sort of game. Her glassy eyes stared past me, something she'd been doing much more frequently whenever she spoke to me. Her lips were upturned into a subtle smile. I was too baffled to move. Steph should not have been able to contort like this. Any grown adult would have been far too big to fit into a space like that. Yet she showed no signs of pain, only enjoyment. I rushed forward, cupping her cheeks in my hands. Her head was bent at an odd angle, and a line of drool ran down her face. I quickly wiped it away. "Steph, what are you doing in there? Let's get you out." I reached for her arm as I guided her out of the cabinet, trying to hide the fear in my voice. Steph didn't protest as I worked her from the space, slowly undoing limb after limb. As we made progress, I could hear the cracks in her body from sitting uncomfortably for so long, but Steph didn't show any pain or emotion. This was worse than I thought. I'd have to call Dr. Yoshihara tonight about updating her prescription. I didn't say anything about how dangerous Steph was being, about how she could hurt herself. I was too horrified to speak. But Steph broke the silence first. "What's for dinner?" Her tone was so casual that it caught me off guard. It was as if nothing abnormal had even happened. Maybe she didn't remember. "I was going to make some chicken Alfredo, your favorite. Why don't you sit down on the couch for a bit? I can light up the fireplace so you're nice and cozy. A change of scenery from the bedroom might be nice." I didn't include that I wanted to keep an eye on her as well. Steph nodded and moved towards the couch. She grabbed one of the pillows, taking her seat in my spot. It was such a small detail, but it hit me like a truck. Steph's favorite spot on the couch was the rightmost part. She always said that it was more comfortable, that the stuffing of the cushions was softer there. She knew that I preferred the right-hand side, and they eventually ended up being our assigned sections of the couch. It was the first time I'd seen her sit on my side. I told myself it didn't matter, but it felt wrong. Steph loved the other side. "Steph, honey, why don't you sit on the other side of the couch? You always said you preferred it." "I like this side," she responded. Her eyes followed me, but I could see that she was looking past me. I didn't protest. It wasn't until a few weeks later, when I was sitting on the porch, reading a book with Steph, when it happened again. Once Dr. Yoshihara adjusted medication, I figured things would be better. It was a beautiful, sunny day out, and I'd poured us both glasses of lemonade to sip on while I read one of her favorite novels to her. About 15 minutes in, Steph abruptly got up and walked into the house without saying a word. I figured she was going to use the bathroom and decided to stay where I was to soak up a little more sun. About a minute went by before I received a text from her. "Can you come help me with something?" I closed my book and immediately went inside. The house was silent. Maybe she's in the bathroom? But when I checked, it was empty. "Where are you?" I texted back. "Come find me." My mind flashed back to the incident that occurred a few weeks ago. I thought of her knotted body inside the cabinet. No, Dr. Yoshihara upped her dosage. There's no way it could happen twice, right? But my gut told me otherwise. I began searching through every hiding spot I could imagine. I was beginning to give up. I swear I had searched the entire house, going through closets, cabinets, even under the bed. I was rooting through the linen closet when I heard a giggle from downstairs. It was soft. It sounded like Steph's old laugh. A door slammed shut. I whipped my head around and raced downstairs. My heart thumped as I once again thought of her crammed into the cabinet. This game was too dangerous to keep playing. It was only when I entered the kitchen that I saw it. The oven was on. My breath hitched in my throat as I made a beeline towards it. I knew I was going fast, but it was as if time had warped every moment so that seconds felt like minutes. Please, please don't let Steph be in there. My slick hands reached for the handle, yanking the oven door open as a warm blast of air met my face. And there she was, limbs tangled once again to fit inside the oven. I let out a yelp. There was no way she was able to do this alone. Steph's empty gaze once again met mine, a small smile on her face. She showed no signs of discomfort at the heat or her contortion. Her voice held a surprising amount of clarity for someone who was in a space that they shouldn't have been able to fit in. "You found me." "Steph, what the hell are you doing in there?" I reached up to turn the oven off before turning my attention back to my girlfriend. Her eyes, once so beautiful to me, now looked empty. One of her legs was wrapped around the base of her neck while her toes jutted out at strange angles. Her arms disappeared between the mess of legs and torso her body had become. She was completely folded over, twice. Even a contortionist of Steph's size shouldn't be able to fit in there. How on earth did she do it? I tried to undo her tangled limbs, but there wasn't enough room. I would have to pull her out of the oven first. Oh God, I couldn't do that. I thought of her skin scraping against the metal rack. It was going to hurt. I didn't sign up to get my girlfriend out of a hot oven. The Steph I knew a year ago never would have done this. Who has she become? But there was no time to hesitate. I slowly pulled her out, making sure that I was handling her gently. But that same smile remained plastered on her face. With cracking joints that sent my heart racing, she began undoing the knots she had folded herself into as I pulled her out. I wanted to vomit. That night I called Dr. Yoshihara and described the incident in detail. I hated that I was talking to Steph's doctor behind her back. But this wasn't normal. It was dangerous and fucking terrifying. But deep down inside, it wasn't just about Steph. I needed someone else to hear this madness. "I can tell this is taking a huge toll on you, James," Dr. Yoshihara said. "I just don't know what to do. I don't want Steph to hurt herself, but I can't watch over her every second. Maybe it's time to consider getting some external support. Just hearing about these incidents makes me think that her mental capabilities have declined significantly. It may be outside of your ability to continue caring for her." Her offer sounded tempting. I loved Steph, but it was exhausting having to re-explain things to her constantly, to watch her every move and tell her what she liked and didn't like. I didn't want to remind her of who she was anymore. It felt like I was begging for the old Steph to come back. But she was dead, long gone. Once she'd been diagnosed, Steph made me promise that I would take care of her, that she wouldn't end up in the hands of strangers or in a home. She'd read stories online about how they could abuse their patients. It scared her. I owed it to Steph to respect her wishes for as long as I possibly could. It's what the old her would have wanted. "I'm sorry, doctor. I promised her I wouldn't. I understand you're a good boyfriend for respecting her wishes, but if it gets out of hand, there's resources available. Bring her into the office and we'll run a few more tests, but I can't say there not much can be done about this sort of behavior without professionals." Over the next few months, I began to keep a closer eye on Steph. Her disappearances became more frequent. Whenever she could, Steph would slip out of my sight and send me a message prompting me to find her. She preferred small spaces, the smaller the better. I'd catch her trying to climb into the vents, sinks, even the laundry machine one time. Each find was more terrifying than the last, not because of where she was hiding, but because of what could have happened. Her luck would run out eventually, and one wrong move would leave her dead. Maybe she'd cut herself, or break a rib by hiding in a place too small and puncture her lung. I didn't know what was coming, but I knew it was getting out of control. It felt like I was betraying her when I finally decided to reach out to assisted living facilities, but I'd done everything in my power to keep her safe, and I just couldn't take it anymore. I was exhausted. I knew I would be giving up a portion of my life to take care of Steph when she was diagnosed, but it was taking a huge toll on me. I was fired when I could no longer go to the office to work, and I never called my parents, and I'd decline invitations to go out with friends. I couldn't sleep without waking up to see if Steph was still beside me. Every moment of my life revolved around making sure that Steph wouldn't hurt herself, ultimately distancing me from the people I needed most. It was a humid summer day when Steph went missing. I had spent all day looking at different facilities, trying to find the perfect place for her. One place in particular piqued my interest. It was close to here. The building looked clean and well maintained, and there were professionals on standby 24/7. I'd given them a call during the day, but they hadn't picked up. That night, Steph and I ate dinner in silence. She would barely eat. I'd made chicken Alfredo again, hoping it would spark her appetite. But I don't think she liked it anymore. I watched as she took slow bites, a vacant expression on her face as she chewed. Steph used to devour this dish when we first started dating. She always said that it tasted better than any restaurant's, and I'd respond that it was because it was made with extra love. I was just about to ask her how the food was when my phone rang. It was the facility I'd called earlier. I excused myself from the table and stepped out onto the patio, making sure that I could still see her through the windows as I picked up the call. I explained the situation to them and inquired about the pricing. I swear I didn't look away for more than a few seconds. But when I looked up again, Steph was no longer sitting at the dinner table. Terrified, I hung up quickly, saying I'd call them back as soon as I dealt with an urgent matter. My phone dinged. "Come find me." I scoured the entire house multiple times. Calls and texts stopped going though, and I could no longer see her location on my phone. After I spent hours looking through every crack and crevice in the building, I finally decided to call the police. They checked every inch of the house, from top to bottom. They searched all of the spots she used to visit before she was diagnosed with dementia, even her childhood home. But nobody was able to find her. Friends and family joined in on the search, just as distraught as I was. I never had the heart to tell anybody outside of the police about the places she'd been hiding before she went missing. I knew it was an important detail, but I wanted her to be remembered as the beautiful Steph that I had fallen in love with, not an empty shell that liked to twist her way into dangerous places. It's been around 2 weeks since Steph went missing, and a weird stench has begun to permeate through the house, like rotten meat. Ever since the smell got worse, I haven't been able to bring myself to find her. I knew she was here, inside the house, because Steph refused to leave as her condition worsened. I knew she was in the living room because that's where it smelled the worst. And now, I know she's in the chimney, because that's where the maggots keep coming from. Nobody ever checked the chimney. But I'm scared. Too scared to see the infested remains of the person I once loved more than anything in the world. I'm too scared to think about what was going through her mind as she decided to stay there until her last breath. And I'm even more scared now after receiving a text from her. "Hello, James, come find me. Come find me. Come find me." I'm starting to think it's something worse than dementia.